Hello and welcome to the main event, everyone. I'm Meeta and I'm joined by our wonderful special guest, Jo Ellen. Welcome back, Jo Ellen.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. Great topic.
Indeed. And, it's a little tongue-in-cheek, but it's not, because it's really important, right?
Yeah, it really is.
And it's already happening.
Yeah, it's a very interesting time of year, because I think that it's been I know you and I have talked that it's been a tough 6 months for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And we know that self-care or even looking after your team can suffer a bit during this when it feels a little more stressful than normal. I think there was, a lot of things were kind of decisions put on hold until the election. And, there's been a lot of other things impacting.
Yeah.
And so overall, my sense is that people are feeling weary and tired and kind of grumpy. And so I thought that the topic was very topical, very for right now, how people might be feeling.
Absolutely. And when we were thinking about it, it's one of these things that everyone's like, yay, I'm going on holiday now. Funnily enough, we went away in April and we're planning to do a holiday in December. So we're not really planning a big holiday over summer. And so my perspective has completely shifted to, well, okay. And don't get me wrong, I'm always thinking about, cover, who's in, who's out, enough bodies on the ground, people available. But sometimes you literally have less than half the team. And for all the best laid plans, the people that are at the office who might not even be having a holiday, which could happen, they do start to get this fatigue of, well, everything's still going on. And I remember there was a time way back in the day, in the olden days, as my children would say, when if somebody covered somebody else's desk, they actually did the work. Whereas I think in this day and age, unless it's like responding or taking messages, most of your work's, left for you when you come back. But also the people that are covering your work seem to be spread out too thin as well. It's like there's more work than people. I don't know. I mean, this is what we're going to cover today. So we've got 4 areas. We're going to be on, just do a little bit of housekeeping. So welcome everyone while you're jumping in. Thanks for making the time to discuss this important topic today. We've got a poll, which is really important because this session is all about being interactive. So it starts with the poll asking you, how well do you think your team feels? How well taken care of do you think your team feels? So that's the poll today, because as Jo Ellen said, we suspect that there's a general fatigue anyway. One, summertime comes and people are ready for a break, the kids' holidays or whatever, but also just what's been going on in the economy, politically, wars, everything. It's not an easy.
The weather.
And the weather. Oh my God.
I know we're not, but I do think there is something that when all other things are going on and it feels, when the sun shines and it's a little warmer, a little spring in your step, and it's a little warmer up here today, but I'm still.
I know. There's no reliability. That's the hard part.
I do think that has I know it does have an impact on the way people feel. And it's like, oh, do I have to put on another jumper? So it all contributes to kind of having to put more effort into just the stuff that you just did like normal. Yeah.
So true. And it's quite interesting because the options are, so how taken care of does your team feel? Poor, adequate, good, and fab. And not surprisingly, everything's in the middle. So no one said poor, rubbish. No one said amazing. We've got 66% at adequate and 33% at good. Yeah. And isn't that the challenge that I imagine most employers generally try and put positive things in place? How well they put them in place versus keep them alive is one question. Then you add on all of the holiday and time of year challenge. And you've got a real set of factors that can really blow up for an organization if not considered. So that's what we're going to do today. And it all comes from, I think you and I are really on the same page about this, which is that an employer who treats their employee holistically, looks at them as an employee, as an individual, and somebody with a family and connections outside of work, and supports all areas, gets so much more back. And so that's what today's session's about. So about 45 minutes to 12:45. We've got a chat box where we'd love your comments or thoughts, or if you've got some challenges. put them on there as well. I'm going to show you how easy it is by just throwing a quick hello into the chat group. So there we are. And I think that means we're good to go. So if you're jumping in at any time, just put your thoughts on the poll and let's get to it. So, Jo Ellen, we've got 4 areas that we said we'd discuss in this space, and it all came back to building this, what we've coined as the loyalty effect.
Yeah.
And so 4 areas we've looked at. One is maximizing the team engagement. 1, there's hybrid working. 2, there's people out on holiday. So everyone can feel a little spread out and maybe a little invisible or undervalued. Then we've got the overcoming of the challenge of the extra workload for those people that are, back at the ranch holding fort. Yeah. Then there's this, people are feeling hard done by anyway. So how does a manager foster a community of productivity and positivity for those people that are left but who might feel a little bit, out to pasture a little bit, like not in the fold and not connected. And then finally, maybe a bit of a controversial one, and we might decide to cover this sooner, but handling the underlying resentment against parents who get priority for school holidays. Have you ever come across that, Jo Ellen?
I mean, not in my company, but I have seen it elsewhere. It's very sibling-like. How come they're getting something I haven't got?
Yeah.
And it is understandable, totally. I mean, should we save that to the end, or do you want to talk about it now?
I feel like we almost should cover it to start with, because I feel that it's at the beginning of the process, which is when people are setting up holidays, applying for holidays. And actually, it can become such a bone of contention that it can magnify and multiply the challenges when the people are off, because not only are they dealing with the workload, but there might be a little bit of resentment there as well.
Well, it's interesting because one of the friends I know who has 3 children and books her holiday, she came up with something that was very interesting. I thought I would talk about it, which is this isn't the time to have the conversation. It's too late. People have booked it. But it's like at the end of the year, you have an open conversation about when people would like to take their holiday, how they want to take their holiday, and how can people support, those who are going to take their holiday, because nobody takes 6 weeks So is there a way to stagger things? How to make it fairer, but have the conversation much earlier? Often the conversations happen in the spring or late spring or even beginning of the summer. There's kind of an assumption often by the person who's got the children that will be a given. So if someone normally takes their holiday in the summer or their big holiday in the summer, they have to begin to see the picture through someone else's eyes and be part of the conversation.
Yeah. Rather
than, I've got 2 children or 3 children or 1 child, and therefore we're going to go off to, Spain. Yeah. That's a given. Just so that there's a lot more acknowledgement about that, the potential feelings of resentment. I mean, some people don't care. It's like, no, that's fine. I'm happy to go in September when the weather is still great and I can swim.
And it's cheaper. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I think you're so right, because I actually feel that holiday is one of these things that it's such an important benefit. It's key for mental well-being, that if we're looking at that triangle, spending time with loved ones, friends, or just you doing something for yourself. And also it's important for an employer to say, this isn't just, it's almost like we shy away from it. I hear what you're saying. So rather than everyone doing it in silo, everyone has a team of, say, 5 to 7 people. Hopefully no manager has to manage more than that. But if you do, it's going to take you a bit longer. But maybe getting some, who's got key dates? But I do think there is another parent, and I've had times of life when, it's me or no one. But that can reflect in the language people use. I've seen people say, well, that's all I can do. If I can't do that, I can't work. And then everyone feels cornered. So it's about language, and it's about approaching it in a collaborative way. I liked what you said about siblings. Yes. That's quite interesting. You know what else I think, Jo Ellen, that if there is a family-friendly policy that says that parents get first rights to summer holidays or the holidays, perhaps employers can do something that is the other way for other people at other times.
Yes.
There's got to be a way that everyone feels equally valued. It might not be at the same time, but they're equally valued. And that comes from communication, right? And building that trust. So talk about it.
Yes, and do it. I mean, I'm well aware we don't have massive teams at Impact Factory, but I'm well aware that, there's one team that, well, they meet weekly anyway. And part of that, I'm aware when the team sort of pulled together with the last hire that we did through you, was to have those conversations. When do you need annual leave? What's your plan? That's just the kind of, and then if there are feelings around it, they can be discussed.
Yeah.
Well, I was planning to take that week. Well, maybe we could compromise, find ways of doing it rather than be triggered that there's a problem.
Because animosity is one of these feelings that literally sticks to people like glue and is impossible to shake.
Yeah.
And the challenge of that is it starts to put a shade on everything, a shadow on everything people are doing. And people don't forgive easily either. So if you're talking about the sibling analogy, then as a manager, which parenting and managing can often be similar structures, it is about, having an open conversation and laying out reality and also having everyone on the same page.
Yes. You may have to intervene and say, this year you can take 3 weeks in August, but actually you can't take 3 weeks next year, or however it might be.
Yeah.
We need you to, take a week and a half, however you want, what's right for the business and right for the people. I don't want to lay down, specific rules to anybody.
But it's got to be fair.
That there is that we do all have a fairness button. And my sense of fairness might be different from yours, but it will be triggered at some point. And also knowing what your team's fairness buttons are.
Yeah.
Is a good help.
We have got a few more responses in the poll, and we've actually got 11% at poor now, which we didn't have before. So I was going to put it to the group. We've got some comments here. Hi, Georgina. So some companies expect you to clear 50% of all holidays by a certain date, which just doesn't work for everyone. Yeah. So I think that's a little bit like, if you've got 24 days, you should be taking about 2 days a month so that people aren't, sort of hoarding their holidays where everyone's off at the end. Is that the kind of thing we're talking about here, Georgina?
No, I think I'm guessing, well, that might be, but I'm guessing that some companies will say you have to book, you have to know what you're going to do for the year ahead. So for some people, they may not. Their partner or an auntie or a grandparent maybe won't be able to get off at the same time. And you might have to say, rather than the first 2 weeks of August, I can now only take the second 2 weeks. But I do know organizations that want you to put in your holiday requests at the beginning of the year. And that can be a challenge for people.
Yeah. And how could it be easy for anyone? We're living in such an uncertain world, and we're still dealing with the impact of, of different rhythm of working. We're still not post-COVID so much that we don't hold on to the hybrid nature, the more holistic approach, and where people really want to achieve that work-life balance. Yeah. But things are changing all the time. So how can people book? And it's financial as well. So many people with the cost of living and interest rates, they don't even know if they can afford a holiday until the last minute. So, that's right. So for the year ahead, yes, so you're right. Georgina's saying, that's what it is. I think that what's really important is, again, to have the conversations and to perhaps rather than, it's where you don't do it and the boss is like, well, why aren't you doing it? And it's like, well, I don't know what I'm doing. But perhaps having the conversation about this is why it's a challenge for me. And could we find a compromise where I can keep a few more days? I think asking it as a one-off, and then there's going to be a decision where you have to work out it, because employment isn't just about the role, right? It's about the role, it's about the culture, your career path, ambition and growth, but also benefits, rhythm of the role, all of that. So, and people more and more are making decisions based on these kind of choices, flexibility and human level consideration over other things, you know. And we've got a comment from Alexandra saying that in FS, you have to take 10 consecutive days of holidays. So that means whenever you take it, you've got to take your 2 weeks in one go. And again, it doesn't work for everyone.
No, it doesn't. I mean, having, up until my early 30s, I was employed in America. I mean, I worked in America, and there, some companies, first off, it was 2 weeks holiday and that was it for most companies. It might have changed. I don't know if it has, but it might have changed. And some companies wanted you to take your 2 holidays at the 2 weeks at the same time. Mm-hmm. And that, again, doesn't always work for everyone. So it's really a challenge. And when you said, when you have the conversations, when you're employed at the beginning, those are the kind of conversations you don't think to have. Mm-hmm. How is the holiday time allocated and stuff like that? I mean, we have a policy of how much you can roll over into the next year. And that's it. If you haven't used it, you will lose it. Yeah. We don't care how you take it because the teams are pretty good about coordinating stuff. Yeah. But the policy is really clear. It's up front, right at the beginning. You're allowed 5 days to carry over into the new year. Yeah. That's it.
And so we used to have that policy, and then we decided that we're going to keep it within the year. But what we started to do is talk about it. So in April, we'll say, listen, you're about a quarter of the way through the year. How much holiday have you taken? You haven't booked anything. How come? And actually, we try and help people make decisions. Yes, some people just haven't got the headspace to think about it. So you become a bit of a coach, and you say, because nobody doesn't want to take holiday. There's a reason behind it. So if you as an employer, if we as employers can help people with their specific challenges, then again, people feel seen, heard, and valued, and they appreciate it. Alexandra, you're saying no flexibility. Yeah, it's tough on people because we've tapped into a period of life, or a time in life, especially in the working world, where people are really connected with their self journey, their self-care journey, as much as their work journey and their loved ones' journey. Because I know from my own experience, working, kids, I was 5 days in London, 9 to 6. My sort of lucky thing was I don't have to travel, and I don't have to do many evenings. And so that was at least I'm around evenings and weekends. But coming out of that, I've realized, well, that's intense as well, to a point where it's not sustainable. I don't remember the last time I had thought about my own personal well-being. It was kids or work. So this bit in between, which is just about self-care, I think is really important. And I think that's the conversation you could have with your employer if they've got some mental wellness opportunities or initiatives. You could maybe say about how these aren't aligning for you and it's causing more stress, and perhaps and not coming from a place of complaining, but perhaps coming from a really authentic place of, I love my work and I love being here, but I have a bit of a challenge and I'd love to talk it through with you to see if there's anything that we can do.
Because I think it's very interesting, all that you said, and what we're talking about, we're obviously talking about holiday, but I think you can extrapolate everything we discussed about holiday to everything else around self-care. So Alexandra says no flexibility. If there's no flexibility around that, where else isn't there flexibility? And you have to question, well, I do. I mean, I have left jobs pre-Impact Factory where I had one organization that I stayed in for 10 years. It was a fantastic experience because of the way they treated people.
Yeah.
But I've been in other organizations where actually, as much as I might like the job or what I was actually doing, how I was treated, or the fact that there weren't those kind of conversations, made it not worth it. Yeah. It didn't feel, your headline was, here, team joy or team sad.
Yeah.
I didn't feel joyful. You're never going to always feel joyful in your organization. But it was, if I found myself dragging myself out of bed, I started looking for another job. I knew that was my symbol. I either got ill or I couldn't get out of bed. and I'm talking and people are frozen. So I will continue talking and hope that it's just Meeta who's frozen at the moment. So my belief is, and not everyone can just go out and get a job and get a new job, but it is taking a look at the culture in the organization and things that maybe you could have influence, at least in your team. And if you don't have that influence in your team, that you don't have to take my example. Could somebody type in the chat? No, I'm all on my own here. Could someone type in the chat just so I know I'm talking to somebody, or I'm the one who's not included here? There we go. We can hear me. But Meeta seems to have disappeared. Is that right? To everybody else? Okay, great. One of the things that I think about in terms of great. Thank you, everybody. Meeta and I always exchange so well that I'm just going to look at some of the things that I looked at on ahead of time, just that I think about right now, is how you create a kind of holiday atmosphere in the workplace. Particularly when there's a depletion of people. And you may do this already, but what I find is that I really encourage the team that's because we have virtual and in-house, at work, people who love coming into the office and the rest of the team work from home, is have lunch together. I don't mean necessarily go out and have lunch. Have everybody, if your virtual team and your home team, as we call ours, have lunch together, kick back, because one of the things, the dangers, and I know I've done it myself and I'm guilty, is I eat lunch at my desk. I think that's one of the worst things you can do. And I also think is a terrible example. So if you're going to do that, have a virtual meeting where everybody brings their lunch and just kicks back and gossips and chats and talk about the things that are more the fun stuff rather than let's talk about work, and go from there. So that's one thing that I really encourage people to do. If you're all in, we as a team do get together regularly. So all the virtual people will come in. I mean, not that they're virtual people, they are online, work from home. We all come in and have a full day together, a lot of practical stuff, lunch together, brainstorming. So, you've made it back.
I'm so sorry. I don't know where I went. I literally I've been told that I don't have internet access. It's just all being very cruel.
I've been giving some hints and tips because I just kept on talking. I didn't know if you were frozen or I was frozen.
No,
I was just looking about how to create this kind of holiday atmosphere currently, while you might have a depleted team. And one of the things is like having lunch together, even with the virtual team, everybody, come and have lunch. I said that one of the worst things that I'm guilty is eating lunch at your desk. It's a terrible example to set. Yeah. But if everyone does it, everyone comes in, either in the office or at home, and don't talk about work, just gossip and have some fun. Yeah. One of the things that I will do is I'll say to our director of operations, is it okay? Can you close the office early today? Is that, if there's not a course going on, can you do this? Just shave an hour off, just let everyone go home. Even if everyone is only 3 people, let the people working from home just say, close down if you can, just a little bit earlier. Things like that kind of just, it's a little special, it's a little bit different.
I agree. I think I know once we sent out little afternoon tea boxes, and they were like £25 maybe, and we all this was when it was lockdown, so you could either do them in the office or some in, some out, but everyone had the same thing, so you were kind of discussing what you had, and it's kind of, I guess, making people feel valued, right? The holistic approach, it comes back to the same message, but there's so many different ways that it can be done. I would also say I think recognition is really important. I think that
so many people fly up. You always get the people that are super helpful and are literally the ones that answer the calls or take the messages, or they can be people that are cover for each other, but often there's that some people who go over and above, and so it's that kind of acknowledgement and recognition as well.
That's on the top of my list of things that I think. And the other thing is, we talk about celebrating wins. We've mentioned that before, but often it's our definition of what a win is.
Yeah.
And not necessarily a definition of what other people's wins are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that if you know what would make someone feel acknowledged and accredited with something, because I was talking about this with someone who's giving a keynote speech, one of our trainers is giving a keynote speech to managers who maybe aren't managing so well. And we talked about wins because he's an ex-Premier League football player. And he said, it's really clear what your win is in football.
Yes.
Not so clear in management.
No.
Because you're not just going to aim for getting the ball in the net and winning the game. But he said there were so many other wins, in the journey to the game, because he's now managing a team as well, that and I said in the keynote that he should be asking that the managers define with their people what a win would look like. So when you acknowledge the win, it's what the person wants to hear, not your standards, not what you think is a win. Oh, we closed on that contract. That's a win. That's me, the boss. Yeah. But actually someone booking in a really good meeting and saying, I made a connection with this person. I don't think they're going to book any work until 2025, but I feel, yay, fantastic.
Yeah.
That's understanding what will energize someone, what will acknowledge what their effort, rather than my thing might be, but where's the booking for the work?
Yeah.
Not that I would ever do that, but.
Yeah. Well, everyone has a different measure of success, and that's so true. And also I think, having touch points that aren't for the sake of it, but like you said, have one where you don't talk about work, but maybe, on a Monday lunchtime, say, right, especially when there's fewer people, people can almost air some of the challenges. So you say, right, what's everyone's week looking like? People can go around and do a minute on each one. What would a good finish to the week look like for you? Okay, brilliant. Everyone defines that and say, like, what do you think could get in the way of that? Oh, well, there's no people here and I'm covering that person. Okay, how manageable is that cover going? Is it realistic? Are you spending 20% of your time, 30%? Let me know if it goes over this percentage. And then we'll think of what we can do. So keep that support live and interactive throughout the week. And then say, well, if everyone achieves what they achieve, how would we like to celebrate? What can we all do together that would, make it feel, well-deserved? And then people will give ideas and we'll say, well, let's pick this one this week. Let's think of another one next week. Summer's a long holiday. But I think even like almost having like summer season. I know that some companies close early on a Friday in summer. They close at 3 or 4 o'clock. And that's often a really nice touch over the holidays. And it doesn't cost a lot, even if you do an hour. Maybe you're like, hell no, that's not going to wash in our company. Even an hour or an extended lunch break where they can go for a walk in the good weather. Like it's good weather for the next 3 days. Let's say, look, do you know what, guys? Actually, for the next few days, why don't you all take half an hour longer or finish half an hour early so you can enjoy the last of the long sunny evenings or whatever. But that real time stuff, I think, helps you get people engaging and feeling valued.
Yeah, one of the things that absolutely we know is under stress, you stop taking care of yourself. I said that earlier. This is what happens. Yes. And that's when you have to step out. No, because I've got this work and I'm covering for so-and-so. And you expect me as the boss to be covering for so-and-so. We absolutely know from all the evidence, anecdotal evidence and research evidence, that the more stressed you are and the more you do without taking care of yourself or taking care of the people around you, the lower productivity is. That people don't achieve as much. They move papers around virtually or, literally. And doing things like that, the extra half hour, closing the office early, just taking breathers, sharing out the work. It may be that, I've given all my work to you, Meeta, because I know you can do it.
Yeah.
And you're going to cover really well for me, or I've been told to give all my work to you while I'm away. And actually, it may be to say, it should be me, but it may be up to you to say, that's actually going to be too much. Can we share it amongst, are there some simpler things that you expect me to do that actually someone else could do? Yeah. And it is surprising sometimes how much can be passed to people who may not have the specific skills that you do.
Yeah, because it's an element of it that can be
an
done.
Element of it, as opposed to, oh, and good, we're just going to take care of it. I don't have to think about that.
And I think it's a manager's job to take some of that workload on. So it can be a really tough time for a manager. But if you see your people struggling or just feeling down or stressed, you know, again, my statement title about, you know, have an environment that people don't need to take a holiday from. Everyone needs and should have a holiday, but it's not where they, I'm going to collapse onto the sun lounger when I get there. It's so stressful before. That is that's too many peaks and troughs. What we're trying to create is this balance where there's ups and downs, but they're manageable and achievable. So you can replenish the stores and people actually come back, replenish, not just back to level, you know, but they've got extra to give, you know. It all comes back to the company and the team anyway. The manager gets a happy, engaged, productive person who's got new ideas, it's just beautiful to see that when it works well. So that starts right at the beginning when you're booking, how you cover, how you plan the cover, but also how you talk day to day about how that's going. And I tell you what, Jo Ellen, recognition, I've over the years, I've seen different things. So some employers do what we call ambassador awards. That's something we do. So you have your culture and then everyone votes for the people, by the people of, you know, who stood out as demonstrating the values. And so it's very specific on the cornerstones that are our values, 4 words: greatness, integrity, clarity, and energy. So then at the end of the month, that team talks about each other's values and everyone says, oh yeah, you did that really well. And you can say, you know, covered my desk really well while I was away. But if you don't have that structure, you know, when someone comes back from holiday and they bring you a box of chocolates, literally people just feel so happy to receive that. Thank you for covering my world while I was away. I really appreciate you. And it could be a keychain. It doesn't need to be anything big. And, you know, again, finances are tight. I think there's got to be a balance of employers doing the recognition, but also colleagues. Just it's a token, you know. Could be
I 100% agree with that. I mean, I do bring chocolates back from Greece, I have to say, when I go.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be big, right?
No, it doesn't have to be big, but it is. We forget. We also forget for ourselves. Oh, you did that really well, Joanne. Boop, 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 boop. Yeah. I'm often the last person that I say, good job. Well done.
Yeah. Well, that's a real British thing, isn't it? You know, if you're American, you're singing your own praises. And, you know, I'm not saying you're an East Coaster, you're practically British, but there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that kind of bigging yourself up in the American culture, whereas we're less likely to talk.
Yes. And I also don't think bigging up is necessarily good, but there is just that self-acknowledgement, even if no one else hears it, that you know you did a great job. Yeah, I handled that controversy really well. I had a really difficult conversation to have the other day, and I had a little pout with myself, and I said, I always have to be brave. I'm really tired of being brave. And then I, of course, had the difficult conversation, which in the end wasn't difficult at all. But I had built it up because we do that, don't we? Yeah. But afterwards, it was like, phew, that was really, and I didn't put it off. That was the best thing when I congratulated myself, it was for not putting it off, not having the conversation, but for not putting it off. Because so we can find things like that. We can see that in other people. What's the little things that they've done that you just say, that was great. That was terrific. Well done. Thank you. You know.
Yeah. So we've got a really good question here, and it's a really important one because it all comes to the culture of an organization. How do we make ourselves and people not feel bad about taking time off? This is a huge subject because in a working environment, you're going to get 2 schools, right? You're going to get the holistic employer that says, listen, you need to take a holiday. You haven't been away for 3 months. What's your plan? How can we support that? What's getting in the way? Or even though you're supposed to take those 2 weeks, whenever you take it, you're seen as someone that's letting the team down. It's really hard because the thing is, this is being projected onto you. It's not about you. It's being projected onto you. And it's, I don't know, what would you say, Jo Ellen?
Well, it goes back to what I said earlier, I think, is if everyone is looking at, you might have to do it at the beginning of the year, at least sketch something out. Have the conversation. What's your holiday plans this year? Do you have any yet? Are you planning to take time in the summer? Oh, you got to take an extra week at Christmas. So you're all having the conversation, the more convivial conversation, not, oh, I have to take my 3 weeks here. You're having something that's more open. You're all enjoying each other. Where are you planning on going? Are you staying in the UK or staycation? All of that kind of fun conversation then takes the pressure off somebody making you feel bad.
Yeah. But what if there's an underlying presenteeism that they don't even talk about it? You know, like they're almost like, oh, we haven't got time to talk about this. What are you talking about holidays? You're supposed to be making that deal right now. You know, that
somebody has to take the initiative. If you buy into that culture and stay in that culture, you will replicate it.
Yeah.
You know, if nobody challenges the culture, this is the thing. And I know we've talked about it in another webinar, and I don't want to go into too much detail, but I talk about a closed culture and an open culture. A closed culture absolutely will wear you down so that you are like the rest, like everyone else who's worn down. And you keep your mouth shut and you feel bad, you feel guilty, you don't comment. And that's unhealthy. When you were frozen or wherever you were, I did talk about, you know, I've left jobs because I don't want to be in that culture.
Yeah.
It's not healthy. So that's the extreme, is leaving the culture. You can help create an open culture. Even if the entire organization is a closed culture, you can have your team an open culture where you are not complaining to each other, but saying, how do we make this work for ourselves? Yeah. Okay, this is sitting above us and it's a little oppressive, but maybe amongst ourselves, we can feel good about this. Yeah. We can together decide how to handle this rather than you being the only one putting your head over the parapet. It will be shot off.
Yeah. And so much of it depends on how closed people have become and don't even realize that there is another way. And the fact that you can actually still see that, you know what, this doesn't serve me, it doesn't serve my team, it doesn't serve us as an organization. How can I effect positive change? I think the first person to have a conversation with is your manager and say, hey, listen, have you noticed? Is this just me, or have you noticed?
Nice,
you know,
good one.
How do you feel about that? Is there anything we can do as a team? Like, you know, if we can't change the world, let's change our space and see if because people will see what's going on in your department and say, wow, I like that. And all of a sudden, I do think it needs to be something that's led by example as well. So you can suggest that you can plant the seed, but perhaps, again, what's important to this organization, if there are deadlines that aren't happening, or there are, you know, if there is a mental well-being day or something, bring it up in a time when you can actually make it relate to something that the company stand for, to say, well, this goes against that. It'd be really good to find a way that goes towards the company values and demonstrates the values better. That way you're not only helping yourself, but you're helping the company as well. And people will all jump into that. I think, Jo Ellen, you know, especially being in a position where, you know, someone explained to me that what I say and do is louder just by way of being the senior.
Absolutely.
It's not actually how loud I speak. It's what I say is taken that much, you know, more literally. And so I started to think about my behaviors. And, you know, some managers are there where they, you know, book a holiday and they don't say, oh, yeah, no, I don't really want to go. Yeah, no, you know, the missus booked a holiday or whatever. Or, oh, yeah, I went, but all I could think about was my emails. No, actually, let's turn it the other way and say, do you know what? And actually, I talked about this in a webinar where I actually went away and said to the team, I'm going to actually not, I used to check. I wasn't working all the time, but I used to check. And I said, I know you've got it. I trust you. And I'm going to show you that by not logging in. And actually, I want you to know that you can trust me the same way. And sometimes if you need me, call me. Don't text, don't email, just call, and you know, on WhatsApp, because then I can deal with it and it's dealt with, and everyone goes back to, you know, whatever they're doing. And actually, I think that if I can demonstrate that it can be done, then so other people will take lead from that. So I think it's something that it's going to be difficult. I think there's an environment of continually putting down those people that take time or, you know, go out the office. It will take time, but you can start in your little world.
Yes, I have to say that sometimes when I'm closing down at the end of the day, I'll see that a couple of people are still sending emails at 6, and I'll say, stop. Stop doing that. Can't it wait till tomorrow? Because I want them to end at 5 or 5:30, whatever their day is, rather than, well, just do this last little thing. Because I used to be guilty of, I'll just do this last little thing and find myself staying till 7 or 8. And that's just not healthy. Yes, when there are massive deadlines, everyone pulls together, but that can be done in a self-care way. Okay, we're all going to have to just do a little bit more this week. You can take it a little bit easier next week, or however, whatever the situation warrants. But there is something around the collaborative. I know we keep coming back every webinar we do, it comes back to communication, but there is something about a collaborative approach means that everyone has a stake in the decision making. And I think it's very hard to have, obviously the buck stops with me and Robin, but when people have a say and they feel that they've been heard, the decisions are easier to handle.
There's less friction.
Yeah.
It flows that much better. And even if it's not quite where you wanted it, you may have got a 20% improvement on where it was. And therefore you feel, okay, I've been listened to, I've been understood. And what I would say as well is remember, and this is something where I've done coaching and training and people are saying, well, I just can't change my manager. That's who I'm stuck with. And I always say, look, you make a choice to come to this environment every day. And there will be a lot of different reasons why you've made that choice. There will be pros, there will be cons, there will be challenges, there will be things that can change and things that can't. And you have to weigh up if you are in an environment where you're not supported in your holiday, that there's the rhythm of holiday and the length of holiday doesn't work for you. How much does that take away from the things that do benefit you?
Yeah.
And then you make that decision. You might say, you know what, I'm going to see it through another holiday season, and then I'm going to bring it up with my manager. Or you're going to say, you know what, I can't face another one and I'm going to look for another role. But remember, you have a choice.
Yes.
And just to know that, you know what, this isn't for me, but I'm doing it now because it serves other purposes, allows you to just take a breath, let go of the stress and work with it.
Yeah.
Try and change it. If you can't change it or influence it, then you know your choices.
Yes.
And make those choices. And as you said, Jo Ellen, not everyone can go into another job straight away. So sometimes those are hard choices, but you're making them for the decision you are making for yourself and your long-term goal.
And I think that there is something, because I have also had crappy jobs that I stayed in because I had to pay the rent.
Yeah.
But that was my motivation. I would clock in my hours. I would do the work to the best of my ability. I gave no more than that, but knowing that there was going to be something different. This was not, I did have a choice, and I'm very fortunate. And I imagine that most people who are here today are fortunate in that we do have a choice at some point to change jobs, upgrade, have the conversation, get some tools and tips, as opposed to when I remember one really awful job I had in kind of an American equivalent of a Poundland, where we were treated like criminals before we even started working there. Quite extraordinary. And many of the people there, that was it. That was what they were going to aspire to have a work, work in a James way. So we are fortunate, and we should, in a way, I'm not talking about, oh, I'm so grateful I have this job, but look with gratitude on the things that I get from it, so that at some point I maybe have the strength to move if the culture is not supporting who I am.
Yeah. And I would also say, yes, Alexandra is saying we need a holiday after taking one. Exactly. And that's about that balance, about not being burnt out. And I think it's really important. First of all, what I would say is that Jo Ellen and I are here now, but you will also get our details and you will also get our LinkedIn messages. If there's something that you feel hasn't been resolved for you, please reach out. I would happily talk to you about this in more detail. I coach people on their career journeys and how to deal with, how to ask for pay rises, how to ask for better engagement from a manager. So we can work on this, but there's at some point, whether the cost of what doesn't sit with you can then be countered by the cost that does, and that's a continual weighing up session. So, you know, what I would say is, do not settle, do the thinking, do the conversation, make a choice, and then out of that you will be empowered. Even if you know that you're going to make that move in a 6-month period, at least you know why you're deciding to deal with that for now.
Yeah.
You know, gosh, Jo Ellen, it goes too quick, and I'm so sorry for my technical absence when I jumped out, and I don't know what it was, but I'm here now. But thank you everyone for interacting, for your honesty, and for sharing where you're at in this taking care of and feeling taken care of. The final results, I'm gonna just put the poll out there. Oh, actually, the poll has gone because I jumped out and jumped in. But I can tell you that when I looked at it last, it was 55% adequate, 33% good, and 11% poor. So in that order, no one said fab. So I think, you know, we can all do work in our own little teams to give them that fab experience, you know. So what I would say is that, you know, you're not alone. We are here. We love to help organizations and people have not just great careers, great organizations, but a great experience along the way, work, life, career, all of it, because that's what makes, you know, success and happiness work in equal measures. So thank you. And Jo Ellen, thank you so much as always.
Love coming to these and
looking forward to the next one. Okay. Well, funnily enough, this is our holiday hiatus now, so we're back in September, and we wish everyone good luck. And I am working throughout, so reach out if I can help in any way. All right, bye for now, everyone. Take care.